Yeah, bro. Going to the like him leaving just as a and to take any job would have been bad, but like
Like
if he had gone to the Cowboys, dude, like our top rival, that would have been the worst.
that, yeah. When that news broke, like 4 or 5 hours ago, I think Matt Barrows is the one that was reporting it, and one of my cousins, he was telling me about it like today. Um, I kind of got worried a little bit, but it wasn't something that was like super super big because I knew that he had a verbal agreement with the Niners, obviously, that if he didn't get a head coaching job, that he would be coming back, and it doesn't feel like the Cowboys would be like his style, like he doesn't want to go coach for Jerry Jones kind of thing. So I'm glad that he
Yeah,
decided to come back home.
I know. Like people were saying like, all right, if you're a head coach to go like take a step backward and become a defensive coordinator, like doesn't make sense. But you have to like weigh the optics of it too, right? It's like not every job out there is a good job because you have to look at the organization, the structure, the turnover in the head coaching position, right? I mean, even the Jags job, like they went through. I mean, what's the guy's name? Urban Meyer was a terrible hire for them, and then Doug Peterson gets them to the playoffs, but then after that, just inconsistencies, right? And
Right.
um, their owner Shaw, right? Sean, not really the best
Yeah.
when it comes to running an organization. I mean, they just fired Trent Baalke too, right? Which is why that guy Liam Cohen wanted to go back, I'm sure, because that was probably the issue, So first of all, it's like this. It didn't make sense to like take any of those other jobs. The Saints is not an appealing job. Raiders not really an appealing job, right? So I feel like it worked out amazingly for the Niners that like Liam Cohen ended up backtracking and taking that Jags job because that was probably the one that, if anything, he would have taken.
Yeah, especially with his ties with the Jaguars. He was there for almost 4 years, as an assistant coach. So, yeah, I mean, Niner Nation should be super, super happy today. We got arguably the best defensive coordinator coming back to the fold. And obviously, we have a last place schedule next season because of the way they finished this season. 11 draft picks. The sky is the limit with this team now. Now they got to nail the special teams hire, and now they got to go out and draft right and do free agency right. So it's gonna be really exciting, man. I'm glad that they made this splash, right before the championship game.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how like everything unfolded too because like we were just saying, so it seemed like the Jags job was the one that was really in the way of the Niners getting Salah back, and he was about to fly out there for a second interview,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, Liam Cohen, who first did an interview, right? He's the Bucks. For those who don't know, he's the Bucks offensive coordinator, and he was phenomenal this season, right? With Tampa Bay, they had one of the top, I think, 3 or 4 highest scoring teams. We saw what Baker did this season for that team. Their run game was phenomenal between Bucky and Rashad White, right? So um, first time, I think he was going for a head coaching gig. Took a first Jags interview, and then he decided, no, I'm going to stay with Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay probably matched the
High State
offer.
OC.
Yeah, and then plot twist yesterday when they said he's going to be flying back out there for a second interview. At this point, I think everyone kind of knew, like, all right, if you're doing a second interview, it's probably gonna happen. And because they fired Trent Baalke, that was probably the last domino, right?
Yep.
And Mike Silver, reporter for The Athletic, has covered the Niners for a long time. He said that Saleh didn't fly to Jacksonville Thursday after the news about Cohen being the favorite for the head coaching job with the Jags. And then shortly after that, Silver tweeted, quote, I expect the 49ers to rehire Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator. So
Yep.
things had to fall into place for the 49ers. I mean, Saleh said he had told the Niners that if he doesn't get a head coaching offer, that he would return to the team.
Yep.
And thankfully, like I said, bro, thankfully it worked out because that's our guy. I mean, was with the team for 4 years from 2017 to 2020. And when he came on, he inherited a team that was not good. They had gone 2-14 the previous season, ranked dead last in yards allowed per game. And they bring him back, they bring him in right in 2017. And in those 4 seasons as he was defensive coordinator, they improved from being from going from dead last to 24th in the NFL, 13th, 5th, and then 2nd over the next 4 seasons. So
Yep.
we know the impact that Saleh has on this team, and his his motto was all gas, no brakes, right? It's gonna be great, man, having him back on the sideline. I feel like that's just what this team needs, especially after a shit year, right? Like no one expected the Niners to have this kind of a down season. Um, they need somebody who knows the guys, knows the system. Granted, there's only two guys on this defense that are back that played under Saleh, and that's Fred Warner and Nick Bosa.
Yep.
Everyone else is all new. So it's going to be interesting to see how Saleh himself adapts, what kind of schemes he brings. But what are you kind of most excited about with him coming back?
Just the fire that he brings to the sideline. I mean, when we were at that Seahawks game earlier this season, you could tell that the sideline was just bland the entire game. There was just no fire. Even when they were winning the game, there was just no fire on that sideline. And I think it's because a lot of things weighed heavily on the minds of the Niners this past season. I think internally they knew they weren't as good as they were the previous year.
Yeah.
And a lot of that had to do with the coaching staff that they had around them to not, be able to bring that fire and bring that energy every single day. Like Kyle Shanahan isn't the one to like fire you up. It's all the assistant coaches that we've relied on in the past, the D'Amico Ryans, the Robert Salehs of the world, right? Those are the guys that get the guys going, every single week. Even Mike McDaniel to a certain point was like that on the offensive side of the ball for a lot of these guys for a number of years. So it's just so important for this particular team to have someone that fires them up after every single key stop, after every single sack, after every single big defensive play. We weren't getting that the last couple of years with Steve Wilkes and Nick Sorensen, and Robert Saleh, for like I said, all intensive purposes, was the best defensive coordinator in the National Football League last season before he actually got fired by the Jets. Because if you look at it from a statistical perspective, the first 5 games the Jets were number 1 in almost every single statistical category. And then after that, they dropped to like a mid grade. They were like still really good because they had really good players, obviously, but they weren't as great as they were when they had Robert Saleh, running that defense earlier in the season. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I know that this guy, he takes a little bit and he makes it a lot with a lot of different players. We've seen this in the past with a lot of our defensive backs and nickels. K'Wan Williams was an amazing nickel back corner for that reason. Robert Saleh kind of like brought him along. He was basically a journeyman up until that point before he came to the 49ers. So that's what I'm looking most forward to is whoever we have in the building right now and whoever they're going to be able to bring from the outside. He's going to have a lot of influence on that for sure. I'm pretty sure they already talked about him having a lot of influence on the defensive draft picks for sure, because this hire, I feel like, is not going to be a 1-year hire. He's going to be here for at least 2 years. I think next year he's going to showcase to the world what a great defensive coordinator is. If they win the Super Bowl, that's a big plus, and I think he would still stay put if he knows that he has, a little bit more of the window to like basically get out of this team. So I think the Niners signed him knowing that they'll have him for multiple seasons and not just a 1-year wonder. And if it is for 1 year, that's fine. As long as they attain the ultimate goal, which is obviously winning the Super Bowl, having the best defense in the league, or arguably a top 5 defense in the league, you can hang your hat on that, and all is fair game. But I'm really excited to see what Saleh is going to bring. We already know what he's going to bring, and I just can't wait to experience that again.
Yeah, to everyone who's watching right now, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the deep dive. I'm Sandeep. This is my co-host Aman. Right now, we're talking about the breaking news of Robert Saleh returning to the 49ers as their defensive coordinator. And we want to hear from you guys in the comments too. What was your guys' reaction when you saw this news unfold yesterday and today? Let's talk about some of these comments too. But, I want to say, I think the Niners also hired Robert Saleh hoping that he stays for multiple seasons, but also knowing, like you said, it could be a 1 and done or a 2 and done. And I think they're comfortable with that because they know what Saleh brings to the table. They know they have Super Bowl aspirations, and we've talked about this so many times now, but the way next season is going to go, right? We have the 49ers have the easiest schedule in the entire league. Super Bowl 60s at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. You're going to bring guys back healthy. You have cap space. Of course, Brock Purdy contract needs to be done ASAP, hopefully, right? But you got the number 11 pick in the draft and just a lot of things that they can do to quickly turn this team around. Like, it was a down season for the 49ers, but this team was literally four division games away from making the playoffs. And those are 4 games that they blew. Not that they just got outplayed from start to finish, right? So it's little things that they can tweak and change, and that's what they're going to address, right? And this was the first step, was bringing Saleh in. We saw that they're already they hired Clay Kubiak, right, to be their offensive coordinator, which I don't think is official yet because of that Rooney Rule. They have to hire some, or at least interview some minority candidates.
Right.
So, but those are the two big things. And then the draft obviously upcoming in April, free agency, the Purdy contract, those things, right? We'll see extensions for Fred Warner probably and George Kittle too. So, but these were the big dominoes that first kind of needed to fall because we know those other things, will definitely fall into place. And I want to address Mike's comment here. Yeah, the Jags organization would have been too risky for Salah's coaching career. Yeah, 100%, man. I agree.
100%.
There's no stability in that organization. They have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who's shown some promise.
Yep.
And Doug Peterson for a season appeared to have been getting the best out of him, but they just can't seem to put it all together. We'll see. Maybe Liam Cohen, can turn things around. I mean, we saw what he did with Baker this season, like I said, right? Baker threw for 40+ touchdowns, got the Bucs to the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if next year the Jags are a much different team.
It's kind of like that trend in the NFL now, right? Like every single team wants an offensive mind as their head coach, right? Or someone that has roots to being a really good offense. So
you have to, especially when you have a good quarterback, right?
100%. And Trevor Lawrence, for all intents and purposes, even though his career has been so up until this point, I don't think he's had the right coaching staff around him to like actually tap into his potential. So I think for him, this is going to be great. Like we said, the last couple of years for Baker Mayfield, he's been around Liam Cohen. Obviously, Liam Cohen was officially the OC this year, but last year he was the quarterbacks coach, I believe, for the Buccaneers. So, this is gonna be huge for Trevor Lawrence for sure, and it's definitely big news for us because we got our guy back. So, I'm definitely glad that the Jags went a different way. I'm glad Trent Baalke got fired. Fuck that guy. Like he everywhere he goes, he just ruins organizations towards the tail end, and he did the exact same thing with Jacksonville. He built them up, and then he tore him down at the end. So, huge shout out, Trent Baalke. Thank you for getting fired and not poaching our defensive coach away.
That's probably why Saleh didn't want to go there. He was probably waiting it out too, and then he maybe got word that they were going to fire Baalke, and then that's when they scheduled that second interview. But shout out to Liam Cohen for taking that job. It's not often you see guys agree. Thankfully, he hadn't signed that deal with the Bucs, but it's not often you see guys take one job, backtrack, and then go take another one. When I saw that, alert come in yesterday from Schefter and Rappaport, that's when I was like, okay, now we can get Saleh back. We have a chance now. Or sorry, it was Silver, the one that was on that news. When I saw that, I was like, okay, now they have a chance. But going back to the coaching thing, I'd say the one instance or one of the rare ones in the league where maybe you're not going for an offensive guy is with Mike Vrabel signing with the Patriots because he's more of a defensive-minded guy.
Yep.
But he's a great head coach, right? And he's bringing in a staff. I mean, they just brought Josh McDaniels back, and even though his head coaching stint with the Raiders was a complete shit show, he did have a lot of success with the Patriots when Tom Brady was there and the Bill Belichick. So I think he's going to do a good job probably with Drake May over there. Our uncle in the comments said, what about bringing back Slowick with the 49ers?
Yeah, he was let go by the Texans.
That was surprising too.
That was a huge surprise. I think they should have given him at least one more year, but I think their struggles on offense toward the second half of the season probably prompted this to happen.
I mean, it's tough, but they're dealing so many injuries though,
Yeah, but the thing is, right, I think a lot of the NFL now is like, what have you done for me lately? The guy goes out last year when he's OC, right? And he does a phenomenal job with CJ Stroud, and just because CJ Stroud has one bad year, which is, typical of a quarterback, you get more tape on them, they're going to struggle, right? I mean, we saw it with Brock Purdy this season. So with CJ Stroud, like obviously he had a down year, but his offensive line was shit, right? His top two receivers arguably were out for most of the season, which were Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. Yeah. And obviously when he lost Tank Dell, I mean, that was kind of like the nail in the coffin for them when they lost him. So they had to really like grind on the defensive end to like win a lot of these games. And that's why they struggled against Kansas City to put up points, is because the offensive line couldn't hold. CJ Stroud, I believe, got sacked eight times in that game.
I think 9 times.
So it's just one of those situations where they're just trying to clean up those mistakes by firing those guys. But I feel like Slowick kind of got the short end of the stick of that. I would love to have the two Slowicks back on the same staff. That would be amazing. But I could see him going somewhere else, maybe with a guy like Matt LaFleur or something. They have They have ties with them there as well. Sean McVay, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back with him, kind of like builds himself up again. But if he wants to come back to the Niners, I'm all for it. The more offensive minds that we have in this building that have helped us get to the success that we've had in the past, the better for us.
Yeah, it's gonna be he'll get snatched up for sure by somebody, just a matter of where, right? And it might not be an OC role. Maybe he gets a job as an offensive assistant,
Yeah,
O-line coach, something like that. Teams will make room for him, but it'll be interesting to see who the Texans replace him with also.
yeah.
But yeah, all I know is I'm thrilled, man. Robert Saleh. If the Niners didn't get him, it would have been hell. We would have been we probably would end up with Brandon Staley as our defensive coordinator, and
That's the other
not.
thing too. Is Brandon Staley's not going to be coming back either, from what the reports are.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I think Matt Mayoko was reporting it today that if they're bringing in Robert Saleh, his preference is not to have Brandon Staley on this defensive coaching staff, which makes sense, right? I think Saleh wants to control everything, just like how Steve Spagnuolo does in Kansas City. He wants
Mhm.
the same type of control. Like, you shouldn't tell me what I need to do on defense. Like, I already know what I need to do on defense.
Yeah, in Salah's case, it 100% makes sense because he doesn't. I mean, he's proven it not only with the Niners but with the Jets. Right? I think they ranked top 5, top 7 in the points allowed per game in the few seasons he was there. Even this season before he was fired. So
Yeah,
there's no reason, yeah, for Brandon Staley, to be on staff now. But I did wonder because like I was listening to KBR earlier in the week, and they were talking about how they released Sorensen, and now Brandon Staley was going to be in consideration if Salah didn't come through, right?
right.
But they were saying, why didn't they just go with Staley as their defensive coordinator last season? He probably would have done a better job than Sorensen did, and because a more experienced guy, obviously, obviously hasn't had a ton of success in the NFL yet, but Staley, you can say probably would have. I think he would have done a better job than Sorensen.
I think so. I think so. But I think for Staley, he was coming from a situation with the Chargers where he looked just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Toward the end of his tenure. I think they gave up 52 points to the Raiders on Thursday Night Football, and he
Yeah.
got fired the week after that. So it wouldn't have sat well with the Niners fan base or with the organization that you just hired a guy who gave up 52 points in the last game he ever coached
Mm-hmm.
as like the
And to the
the head,
Raiders.
and to the Raiders. Yeah, exactly. Who have literally nobody last season. So I think it was more of a cosmetic move in the sense that oh, they're bringing in this guy that they have within the system. We've done it before. We can do it again. They're trying to show that hey, if D'Amico Ryans can do it, Nick Sorensen can do it also. But I think with Nick Sorensen, he got dealt a bad hand because he didn't anticipate having that many injuries.
Yeah.
He didn't anticipate the Niners blowing that many leads because of the offense struggling at times, obviously, and the defense getting tired at the end of games. So I think Sorensen did as good of a job he could have done with the hand that he was dealt, which was the injuries and the insufficiencies on offense that led to a lot of defensive lapses, obviously, throughout the season. So, but
I think the injuries that definitely didn't help out, right, with Sorensen. They're missing a lot of guys, obviously, like here and there, but but you and I were talking as the games were going on, right? And yes, when you're missing guys, especially some of your top players here and there, it's going to hurt. But that's when you have to get creative, and you learn about just how good a guy is in that role. Change up some coverages, send some blitzes, different things like that, right? Go from zone to man, whatever it is. Like you have to show some creativity with the guys you have, and make things happen. And Sorensen didn't even show a glimpse of that ever.
yeah.
And I feel like had he tried to do that at least and tried to talk to Shanahan, like, hey, let's try some different things out, and showed that, like, hey, he's not afraid to challenge Shanahan a little bit too, and the scheme that he wants to run. Maybe he could have made a better impression, and maybe we're not talking about Salah coming back right now.
Well, the other thing too with Sorensen is the last 4 games they look like shit, absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
And you can't leave that kind of impression with an organization going into a very pivotal offseason with that kind of performance that you put up. Regardless of the injuries, your scheme is trash. You can't generate any pass rush, right? That's what the NFL is about now. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Their offense is garbage. It's been garbage for the last 2 years. But what's helped them is having an elite defense. Probably the best defense in the NFL when it's all said and done, right? Holistically, Spagnuolo has done an amazing job with what he has had to work with in Kansas City. And it's crazy, the career arc that he's had there, right? when he first was the DC, they were like trash on defense, and everybody was calling for him to be fired.
Hmm.
After that second Super Bowl win against Philly, um, he was put into the upper echelons of like the NFL defensive coordinator circles as being like the best DC in the National Football League, and it's because of the performances that they had throughout the playoffs, obviously, that helped them get to that point. And obviously, we know what happened last season. They played phenomenally in the playoffs, and they shut the Niners down, a team that was pretty much like top three, top five in almost every statistical category on offense last season. So
Hmm.
that's the type of thing that I'm looking forward to with Robert Saleh, becoming the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. He can put us in that place where if our offense can't generate any points, our defense can bail us out on a lot of these situations. And we honestly haven't had that luxury the last couple of seasons. Steve Wilkes was really good for a certain stretch, but even he was questionable with some of his decision making.
Yeah.
Sorensen, he had no idea what he was doing, and it's not his fault. That's totally on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan for making that move.
Yeah. It's I think it was. I mean, last year too, when they were at this time, they didn't really have many better options, right?
No.
And they kind of fucked themselves over by kind of waiting it out, trying to see who was going to become available, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're going to make this internal hire, and none of us knew what we were in for, right? When they hired Sorensen, it was more just like, all right, let's see how this goes. They brought Staley on to be just like an assistant to him, and it just didn't pan out either way. But it doesn't matter now because Robert Saleh back with the 49ers, highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL. It's exciting, to be a Niner fan right now for sure. Not that exciting to be a Cowboys fan because let's talk about this comment from Luis. Shout out Luis, Dan. I see you guys in the comments. My brother-in-law Dan said he can't really. He's watching on mute because it's a date night with with the wife. So appreciate you, Dan, still stepping away to tune in. Indo, I
Shout
see
out
you in
Dan.
the comments. R and Uncle as always. But let's talk about this. Luisa, let's talk about the Cowboys hiring Brian Schottenheimer, Oppenheimer, Sloppenheimer, whatever his name is. We were talking about this like last week, right? When Mike Yam was on the show, and how the Cowboys have just kind of mishandled this whole coaching hiring spree in the offseason, right? Because
Yeah.
they decide to let Mike McCarthy go, but they do it a bit late, and they missed their early windows to interview guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn.
Yep.
And then we saw obviously Ben Johnson took the Bears job, which was the one I thought all along that he was going to take just because it's the most appealing one out there.
Yep.
Aaron Glenn took the Jets job. He was drafted by the Jets a long time ago. Was a former player there, so he knows the organization a bit, right? And they're really happy about bringing him in. So the Cowboys, it was coming down to Kellen Moore. Who's their DC that they were interviewing also?
Oh,
I don't
it's
know these
slipping my
Cowboys
mind.
guys. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
they
not
were
a
interviewing
Cowboys.
their they were interviewing their defensive coordinator, and ultimately they hire their offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, who apparently they had an 8-hour interview with earlier this week, which is crazy because they know the guy. He's literally been with the team. What the hell are you talking about for 8 hours? Like, are they? I don't know. It's that's the Cowboys for you, right? But
That's what the
what's
Cowboys
your
do.
what's your reaction to just how they? I mean, them hiring Brian Schottenheimer and just like how they've handled everything.
I think with the Cowboys, it's not an appealing job whatsoever because you have no control over key personnel decisions day in and day out. Jerry Jones is a very, very controlling owner. He thinks that he knows it all, and to be frank, just because shit worked in the '90s doesn't mean it works in 2025. And he's kind of stuck in that phase where he thinks that everything should go through him. All key personnel decisions should go through him, and we saw that with obviously we've seen that here at home with Jed York. He used to kind of feel the same way when Jim Harbaugh was coach, and they struggled for 3 years after Harbaugh, and he
Mm,
learned his lesson. So he learned to step back. Obviously, I'm pretty sure his uncle Eddie DeBartolo, God bless that man, for bringing 5 championships to the Niners. I'm sure he had a talk with him and told him to step back. But there's really nobody that can tell Jerry Jones that to step back because he is, the judge, jury, and the executioner when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. So I have a feeling that a lot of coaches who interviewed were probably turned off with the idea of being a coach for the Cowboys because of Jerry Jones.
Mm.
I think Brian Schottenheimer, because this is his first chance to actually be something big in the NFL, because he is the son of Marty Schottenheimer, who was an amazing coach as well. Um, I think obviously he would want to jump at this opportunity to coach America's team. I'm really surprised that they didn't retain Mike McCarthy. I think he wanted to come back, but they couldn't figure out the numbers or whatever the case
They were
was.
kind of lowballing him.
And he's like, dude, like I literally won you guys like 13 or 12 games 3 straight years, and we have one down year because the quarterback's out pretty much the entire season, and you want to lowball me now? Like
Yeah.
they were still competitive even without Dak Prescott, right? Like they still had a chance to actually make the playoffs. Like as crazy as that sounds, like they were like in the same boat as the Niners were for
Hmm.
pretty much the second half of the season. So I think it's just one of those situations where coaches know what they're going to have to deal with if they go into Dallas, and it's a very very hard thing for a lot of people to accept, not to have a lot of personal decision making with the Cowboys. So I'm not surprised that Schottenheimer jumped on this job, and the Cowboys probably felt like they were cornered as well and needed to make a move.
Yeah, I think aside from the Jerry Jones factor, there is appeal when it comes to the Cowboys job, right? Because it's the Cowboys, like you said, the brand, the name, and everything. They have a quarterback in place. They do have some really good pieces on both sides of the ball, and they're probably just a few good moves away
Yep,
from being back to like that playoff team, right? But
for sure. They have a
it
lot of
comes
talent. They have a
they
lot
do
of
have a lot of
talent.
talent, and they were missing a lot of that talent this year. It's not just Dak, right? Defensively, they missed a lot of guys. Micah Parsons was on the IR at some point early in the season, and we saw when they had their guys back toward the end, they went on a run,
Yeah,
right? And were able to
they
win.
played
I
well.
think maybe 4 out of their last 6 or something like that.
Yep.
And I know around the NFL fans too. Sometimes like we like to give Mike McCarthy a hard time. I don't think he's a bad coach. Like he's not a great coach either, but he is an experienced coach and he has his
Yep.
moments where he's solid. I think they would have been better off running it back with him for another a few years. Maybe
I
sign to
agree.
a 3-year deal instead of a 5-year deal. Pay him a higher, AAV, but just put on a shorter term. And if after the first season or second season you're still not making any progress, all right, get out because it's only a year left, right, on the deal.
Right.
But I guess they're confident in Brian Schottenheimer being the guy now. We'll see how it goes, right? It can either go up or go down. That's not our problem. We're Niner fans. We got Robert Saleh back, so we don't really care, But
Yeah.
we're always laughing from a far distance at the Cowboys. But let's shift gears now, man, because it's championship weekend. We got a couple of huge games on Sunday. NFC championship game is the
Yep.
Eagles hosting the Commanders, and
Yep.
in the AFC, obviously, it's the Chiefs and the Bills. Let's start with the Eagles and Commanders game. What will it take for each team to win here? Eagles obviously are the 2 seed coming in. They beat the Rams last week in a game in which Jalen Hurts suffered a little bit of a knee injury, was kind of hobbled the entire second half, wasn't able to move. They took a safety in the end zone, right, which was a terrible play call. They decided to go to shotgun, right, backed up against their own end zone. Hurts gets sacked. Rams get 2 points there.
Yep.
But they held off the Rams, and the Commanders making this Cinderella run right now, right? They go out in week 1. Who did they beat in the first round again? It was
The Commanders.
yeah.
Tampa Bay.
They beat Tampa Bay. That's right. That
Yep.
was a good game. That was the only good game of
That was the
that
only good
wild
game of
card
the weekend.
weekend.
Yep.
And then they upset the Lions, the number 1 seed last week in Detroit, which I think probably 98% of America had the Lions winning. That 2% were Commanders fans.
Yep.
Kevin Durant being one of them, and they shocked the world. They beat the Lions. So now here we are, Commanders, Eagles. What do you think for here? I'll let you take the Commanders side. What do you think it'll take for the Commanders to win this game?
No turnovers. No turnovers. Jaden Daniels just needs to continue to do what he's doing, which is just shredding teams on third and fourth and short situations. I didn't know this, but the Commanders have a 90% conversion rate on fourth down this season, which is like the highest in the NFL in like
90?
30. 90%.
Yeah.
90% conversion rate on fourth. I think like fourth and 2 or fourth and 3, like and shorter.
Uh-huh.
So they win the battles in the trenches. It's obviously because Jaden Daniels is such a great quarterback at, finding open space to like run through, and obviously like He hits the guys wide open. He's a better thrower of the ball than I could have ever imagined him being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been showcased the last couple of weeks. But the key for them is no turnovers. If they play a clean game, I don't know how the weather's going to be in Philly this week, but if they play a clean game, if they just do what they're supposed to do and not take too many chances on offense, like how they did against the Lions last week, because that kind of stuff is not going to work against the Eagles. Whatever they did against the Lions, the Lions had a really really bad defense the second half of the season, even though they got a lot of guys back, which
Mm-hmm.
was kind of surprising, considering that Aaron Glenn got a head coaching job pretty quick. The second half of the season, he was probably one of the worst defensive coordinators in the NFL,
Yeah, I think people
regardless
were
of
just
injuries.
enamored with the job he did against the Vikings in that Week 18 game.
Yeah, 100%. So, um, it's one of those situations where the Eagles are the favorite because they're at home. They have Saquon, they have Jalen Hurts. That offensive line is amazing. Their defensive line is beyond amazing.
Yeah,
But
their secondary is beyond amazing too.
yeah, you got Slay back there, and a couple of the safeties as well. So,
DeJohn
um,
Cooper,
yeah, Cooper
Cooper
DeJean,
DeJohn, yeah.
he's really good as well. So I don't know, man. I have a feeling that the Eagles are probably going to take this one for sure, but I think the Commanders can make it very very interesting if they play a clean game. They can't turn the ball over. If they do, it's wraps.
Yeah, last week's game was a different challenge, right? Because with Detroit, Jared Goff is a pocket quarterback. They go through their run game with David
Yep.
Montgomery, Jameer Gibbs, and obviously they have They have a lot of weapons on the offense, right?
Oh yeah.
But they were able to get pressure on Goff, and they made him mess up a couple times, right? Threw a couple picks in that game.
Yep.
One was brought back for a pick six, and then they get another one on him too. But this Eagles team is different because just like Jaden Daniels does on the other side for the Washington team, Hurts does for the Eagles. They run a lot of option. Saquon, obviously, the dynamic running back that they have, and
Yep.
they got weapons on offense too from
Yep.
AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, and then even their like third and fourth wide receivers come in and do a decent job too. So it's going to be a tougher challenge this week for sure
For
for the
sure.
Commanders and these two teams. Obviously both NFC East teams. So this is like a good division battle right here in the NFC Championship, and they played twice this season. First time they played in Week 11. The Eagles won 26-18. In that game, Saquon had 198 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in Week 18, Washington beat Philly 36-33 on a late touchdown. That Jaden Daniels found one of his receivers in the back of the end zone with I think less than 30 seconds left, and they stole that game. But Jalen Hurts suffered a concussion early in that game and missed pretty much the entirety of that game. So they were playing with a backup quarterback, Kenny Pickett, for a majority of that contest. And the Eagles were still in a position to win that game late. And Saquon had 150 yards in that one and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels, 5 touchdowns in that game and 81 rush yards. So,
Yep.
Even though the Commanders stole that second game, Hurts wasn't there. So that is a huge factor. And now you're talking about an NFC Championship game in Philly. So for Jaden Daniels and this young Commanders team going on the road in Philly, a tough environment to play. We know against a good defense, a good offense. I think this is where the Commanders Cinderella story comes to an end. I just think Eagles are too experienced, too good on both sides of the ball. But to me, it comes down to the Eagles for Jalen Hurts. If he's healthy enough to be able to move out of the pocket, make throws on the run, make plays with his legs,
Yep.
they'll be fine. If they get to him and it kind of re-aggravates that knee injury that he has, then it could be tough. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, not what we're used to seeing with maybe the Eagles and Commanders, especially with the cold weather. So I'm gonna say Eagles. Maybe I'm gonna say like 27 to like 21, 24, 27, 24. I don't know if that's considered low scoring or not, but that's my prediction. I think Eagles win. I think it'll be close, but I just think the Eagles will win.
It'll be close for sure. I'm going more in the realm of 20-17. It's gonna be a field goal game. I have a feeling the Commanders will keep it close the whole game, but the Eagles.
Oh, we lost you for a second there. The Eagles,
if
what?
they if they, I would be surprised I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders pull off the upset, but I would be more surprised if Saquon doesn't go crazy all over the Commanders.
I
So
think
I'll
I
say
think the
that.
Commanders are really really going to try hard to sell out and stop Saquon and make Jalen Hurts beat them. So
Beat them, yeah.
you're going to see them stuffing the box
Yep.
often. Linebackers up there.
Yep.
Um, they're not going to blitz. You probably won't see them blitz a lot because you don't want to see easy dump offs to Saquon and then he breaks off one of these patented 40, 50-yard runs, right? So I think it's going to be the defense, yeah, really trying to key in on Saquon. And then for the Commanders, they're I think offensively, it's going to be I think it's going to be a Jaden game. It's going to have to be as always, right? But like you said, if he turns the ball over against this Eagles team, then it's going to be a long day for the Commanders. You give the
Yep.
Eagles extra possessions, they're going to make you pay. Um, but we have to give props to the Commanders for even making it this far. I mean, a rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, first year with Dan Quinn as their head coach,
Yep.
Cliff Kingsbury, right? They really, really turned this thing around within one season. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out. And let's shift gears though. So Bills and Chiefs. This is the big one. The Chiefs have owned the Bills in the playoffs in the last few years. Mahomes 3-0 against Josh Allen, over the last few seasons. And the question is, can Buffalo finally beat them in the playoffs? Because we did see the Bills beat them earlier this season, in a Week 11 matchup. But this is the playoffs, right? This is different. Now you're going to Arrowhead Stadium in January, it's a tough place to play. And the Bills are going to be without Taylor Rapp in this one too, which I think is a big loss for them. They're going to have a rookie safety back there, Cole Bishop, who they're very big on. They're very confident in him. Obviously, being a rookie, there's inexperience there, and Mahomes is going to try to exploit that whenever he can. But these last three matchups they've had in the playoffs, so the 2020 AFC Championship, Chiefs dominated this one actually 38-24. 2021 divisional round, which is considered one of the best playoff games of all time. The Chiefs won 42-36 in overtime. That was that game that within the final 2 minutes, there was like 4 or 5 scoring changes and the Bills just couldn't hold on for 17 seconds. Chiefs tie the game at the end of regulation, get the ball to start overtime and go on to win. And that's why they ended up changing that rule that both teams get a chance now in the overtime, right, in the playoffs to possess the ball.
Yep.
And then last year in the divisional round, Kansas City went into Buffalo and won 27-24. So what is it going to take for Buffalo to finally win this one? Like, it feels like this is their year. To me,
It does.
To me, the big thing is not that they beat the Chiefs earlier this season. It's the fact that they beat Baltimore coming into this matchup, because Baltimore is also one of the best teams in the NFL, arguably a little bit harder to defend and stop because of the way Lamar plays, because they have Derrick Henry, the RPO they run, right? That's way tougher to stop to me than what Kansas City is coming. With Kansas City, it's Mahomes, right? And who's nearly impossible to stop because he's a magician. We saw what he did last week with that little flip passes. He was falling down, right? So I think stopping Mahomes is going to have to be the key. Don't let Kelsey just run into the flat every single possession, every single play. But it should be easier for them to stop this Chiefs offense than it was to stop that Ravens offense. What do you think?
I think so for sure. Going into the playoffs, the Ravens had the best offensive line in the National Football League. And, it felt like in a way that Lamar and, the Lamar and Derrick Henry thing, like, first of all, it's bad on the NFL to have Lamar and Derrick Henry on the same team. You already know they're going to cause a lot of problems. So, the second half of that game against the Bills, like, they had a legitimate chance to, like, beat them. They had a legitimate chance to actually try to run away with the game because of the way the offensive line played in the second half. The Bills only scored, I think, 6 points in the second half of last week's game. And, the Ravens, they were playing really, really well against that secondary in the second half. So, but that being said, Kansas City is just a different beast, right? When it comes to the playoffs, like we feel like every single year is going to be the last year that they're ever in the playoffs or they ever go to the Super Bowl, and here we are again.
Mhm.
Like they're in their seventh straight AFC Championship game.
It's insane.
So the long-standing success we know about that, but I do get a feeling that if there's anybody that can beat him, like beat Mahomes, it's Josh Allen,
Yeah.
and it's only Josh Allen because we've seen the super heroic efforts he's done all season to keep the Bills, as one of the top contenders in the NFL. Like, if you look at that roster, they're not that talented on the offensive side or the defensive side.
Yeah.
They have really good. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills pull off this upset. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs are favored in this game, but I would be shocked if the Bills don't win this game because of Josh Allen. They played in the regular season. They beat them 30-21 already. So I'm looking forward to this game for sure. This is the give me the Bills, man. The Bills are gonna win this game because Josh Allen is gonna be a superhero.
Yeah, this is it's definitely going to have to be a big Josh Allen game, right? Everything they do on offense runs through him, and Dan said Mahomes is far superior to Lamar. Yeah, I 100% agree. Mahomes just even at the last second when you think he's about to get sacked or about to take a loss,
Mm-hmm.
he makes something happen. He pulls a rabbit out of his ass, and all of a sudden it's a first down. And um, our uncle said hopefully the zebras don't decide this one. Yeah, hopefully I don't want to see Chiefs getting any favorable calls in this one. Call it an even game. Call it fair both ways. None of these. What play really pissed me off last week in the Chiefs game. Mahomes starts to scramble, and he's kind of just inching here and there, and then all of a sudden just decides he didn't even slide down. He literally just kind of sat down, and these two Texans guys from the defense come in to try to tackle him. First of all, don't even hit Mahomes. They kind of hit each other.
Yeah,
But the way Mahomes gave himself up, it wasn't like your prototypical quarterback slide, right? Where you see they're about to slide. It's like a 2-3 yard slide and guys kind of back off. He literally sat down. And Tom
he
Brady
calls
was
back to the
actually
passer.
Tom Brady was talking about this. He said once a quarterback gives himself up as a runner, they should be treated as a runner. And I think that's 100% true. As soon as you cross that line of scrimmage and you start to take off, you should be susceptible. It's not like you're in the pocket, right? And a guy like it's a roughing the passer. At this point, you're considered a running back. And
Hundred
yes, of
percent.
course, late hits are always like once a guy's down, you can't come in or anything. But that's something they got to figure out in the offseason is that rule, But going back to the thing at hand, it's for the Bills. Yeah, it comes down to being able to stop Mahomes, which obviously is way easier said than done.
Yep.
But if there's any chance the Bills have, it's this season. They've been extremely, extremely good all season long. Obviously, yeah, we said beat Baltimore last week. They dominated the Broncos and in the wild card round, and they have enough guys on the offensive side to win games, right? Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakur, who's been incredible this season, and Keon Coleman. So not any like major names, right? But they're guys that get it done. And then once you get to that red zone area within the 5-10 yard line, the Bills are really good at putting the ball into the end zone. So,
Yep.
and then I think they just got to worry about, yeah, like I said, it's literally just Kelsey and then slowing down Mahomes somehow. You're not worrying about Tyreek Hill this time beating you on a 60-yard, bomb. Xavier Worthy's not really like the explosive guy we thought he was going to be early on this season, right? He has moments here and there, but this Chiefs team is definitely beatable, and I think the Bills will finally get it done. I think it's going to be a closer game than it was earlier in the season, but I'm going to say on this one, I think it'll be like a 24 to 21 game, and the Bills win on like a late field goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be close for sure. I think it'll be a little bit more high scoring because we have two of the more elite quarterbacks in the NFL. I feel like the defenses are going
In
to
the
take a drink
30s.
in this one. I think it's going to be in the 30s. I think it'll be 30-27 final score kind of situation, and I hope it goes the Bills' way. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs go back to their third straight Super Bowl. So
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised if that happens, but
yeah,
I don't
They're
know, man. Yeah,
they're
this
they're
is
super
this.
they're super good, man. Like, as much as we hate on them, they're so goddamn good, right? They're so good and they're so hard to beat. So I hope Sunday is different, obviously, but history says the Bills should be able to win this game because of all the heartache that they've had to experience. But if we know one thing about history, it's never on the side of the team that's been losing. It's always on the side of the team that's been
Yeah,
winning. So we'll see what happens.
yeah. If the Bills don't get over the hump at this point, I mean, it's going to be. It only gets harder because it's hard enough to make it to this point. You go on a run and Kansas City gets back there, then next season you got other teams that kind of re-up, right? That will be back in the fold. Like I'm sure the Bengals will be here next season in the postseason. They're not missing it again next year. Um, the Broncos will be better. The Ravens will be right there again. So the Bills have to really capitalize on this one. And one thing I'll say is whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl. This game
For sure.
is this game is pretty much the Super Bowl. These are the two best teams that are left out of these final four teams, and whichever team comes out of the NFC, whether it's Philly or Washington, I don't think is going to stand a chance against the Bills or the Chiefs, whoever wins this AFC Championship. So this is a Super Bowl matchup, and the winner of this game is going to be your Super Bowl champion. And I'm praying it's the Bills. I really want to see an upset. Let's see Josh Allen break through and get his first Super Bowl. It'd be amazing. So Sunday, NFC Championship is at 12 o'clock. AFC Championship is, I think, at 3:30.
Yep.
Be some big games. We might potentially do a post game live reaction on that one. So stay tuned for that on Sunday night. And then we did want to get into NBA talk, but we do got to cut things short today. So I promise you guys next week I'm going to do an episode, talk about some NBA because the trade deadline's coming up, and
Yep.
there's been a lot of news right now with the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers, who are actually playing Saturday night at 5:30 at Chase Center. So it'll be hopefully another epic Steph versus LeBron showdown. Which a couple weeks ago we got a really good game that came down to the wire on Christmas. So we'll come back next week with some NBA talk. But yeah, stay tuned. Sunday night we'll do a live reaction following the AFC Championship. And hopefully we're talking about a Bills win then, guys. But thank you guys all for tuning in to the deep dive. I'm Sandeep. This is Aman. And we will catch you guys on Sunday.
See you guys.